This episode is brought to you by SRB Field Rests. Your shotgun, bow, or rifle is an extension of who you are as a hunter. Whether you're hunting snows in a muddy mess of a field, mallards in the marsh, or whitetail from a ground blind, SRB Field Rests has your back. A local Kansas company that provides an easy-to-use, simple, and ergonomically effective solution to just awkwardly holding onto your gun or your bow when you do not need to, allowing you to have more freedom, comfort, and safety in the field. Enter discount code FOWLFRONT at checkout for 10% off your order of any SRB Field Rest today. This episode is also brought to you by Oak Barn Beef, a direct-to-consumer, family-owned farm that delivers high-quality, DNA-tested, dry-aged Nebraska beef from their family to yours. You can select from a wide variety of boxes. My personal favorite is the Husker Beef package, which combines jerky, ground beef, steaks, and a brisket. These packages are perfect for families, get-togethers, out-of-town hunts, or for you outfitters looking to upgrade your table fare for your clients. Order yours today at oakbarnbeef.com.
And what's really important is that we band together, we speak with one voice.
And I was like, you sure? Because I got 2 kids, I don't want it to ruin your hunt. You're like, yeah, just come and hunt with me.
Just take your time. Like I said, it would have killed a normal man, but I'm not normal, but you know.
When you said, why do you want to talk about that? To me, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, there's so many different factors that go into this decision.
Enjoy it for what it is. Every moment of it. If you're only going to shoot one duck.
Welcome to the Fowl Front Podcast, part of the Waypoint Outdoor Collective.
Hey, Fowl Front, it's Hannah from Oak Barn Beef. We're giving away a box of steaks, jerky, and more premium beef exclusively for the listeners of the Fowl Front. To sign up, head over to fowlfront.com and click on the Oak Barn Beef giveaway tab to enter into this giveaway. Thanks, and we can't wait for you to try our Nebraska-raised and dry-aged premium beef.
All right, welcome to the Fowl Front Waterfowl Podcast, and today I am joined by my brother, Zach. Zach is a trainer at a software company and is also a philosopher. Is that kind of a weird title, Zach?
It is a little bit. I like it. I like it. I'm not a professional philosopher, if you will, so I don't have a PhD. I'm not an academic, researcher. So in that regard, it's good to make a distinction between somebody who's got a PhD and working in the field versus somebody who just enjoys the topic. I fit into that latter category. But yeah, I consider myself a philosopher.
Yeah. And you've been on the podcast before. I went to episode 8, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the one it was. It was real early on. I was excited when you joined me, and equally excited to come back and talk a little bit about it some more.
Yeah, and since then you've become an avid waterfowl hunter. That's correct, right?
I don't know that I would go that far necessarily, but I definitely expanded my horizons a great deal. You and I have, of course, had a lot of conversations about it.
But yeah, so just so a little disclaimer here for anyone listening: you're not going to hear You're not going to hear any waterfowl hunting stories on this episode. But I thought it was because Zach, you've never waterfowl hunted yet, have you?
No, not at all. Not at all. Never.
No, but so why are we talking today?
Well,
your best guess.
It's a great question. So, you and I did a podcast a while back on the ethics of hunting, and a few of your listeners enjoyed that. Hopefully, a lot of them did. And you know that I'm very passionate about arguing and philosophy and making folks kind of better consumers of information. And your passion is on waterfowl hunting, so it only makes sense that we bring those two back together again and reconvene for round 2.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about understanding why or how you feel about waterfowl hunting. Not you, the listener. How the listener feels about waterfowl hunting and how they can go through and kind of, one, build their argument and really understand why they're doing and what they're doing it. But what do you think that the listener will be able to walk away with today? Just your prediction or hypothesis about this discussion.
Well, what I'd like to see is that your listeners come away with, one, a much better understanding of their own argument, right? I think that's really, really important when you get engaged with discussions like this, to really just take some time to make sure that you understand what your own position is. Because in a lot of instances, people will kind of argue needlessly, all because they don't really understand their own position. So that's, I think, the most important thing to take away. And then hopefully just a passion for this topic in general. We live in kind of a time period where there's a lot of information available, right? A lot of different ways that you can get information and digest information. And a lot of people kind of feel almost like it's hopeless, right? How do you ever unpack it? There's this kind of belief, I think, in general, not maybe just with your listeners but with everybody, about how can we ever really come to an agreement on these issues? Isn't it impossible to get to the bottom of these things? So another thing I'd like your listeners to come away from is faith or hope that you actually can talk these things out and come to a reasonable conclusion between two people. So really just have faith in philosophy in general, and that ability to sit down, talk about ideas, and really come to a better understanding of somebody who you maybe didn't agree with when you started the conversation.
Right. And I think understanding how you feel about these things and truly digging and unpacking how you feel about it is super important, because we kind of live in a time where waterfowl hunting, we think that there's a lot of us when we're at the boat ramp and we see a bunch of dudes that are trying to take our hunting spots, but we have much more in common with those people that we might be, kind of temporarily upset with. But there's a lot of people out there that, really don't want us to be out there waterfowl hunting, but even more people that don't care if we're out there. And I think it's really important for us to communicate effectively to both of those groups to ensure the success and thriving of the way of life that we enjoy now in the future.
Absolutely. It's a very noble cause, and a good thing for your listeners to be thinking about. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's start a little bit with you. How many years have you been philosophizing?
Great way to refer to it. And I've been philosophizing now for probably about 15 years or so. I always was kind of inquisitive and was always interested in reading from a really young age, so that helps. But then I took a few college courses in philosophy when I went to college, and it really just stuck with me. It really resonated with me. I'm a very skeptical person by nature. So when I came across philosophy and its systematic way of kind of going through and trying to get answers to questions, really, really appealed to me. So even though I don't now maybe do it professionally, you could say, as a professor, I'm always looking for opportunities to talk about philosophy at work and to show other people how you can use those skills of philosophy in whatever it is you're interested in.
Absolutely. Cool. And so did you grow up hunting?
I didn't. We Dad got Jeb and I interested in scouts from a really, really young age, and Mom was helpful in that regard too. So we were always around kind of guns and around nature and around other people who would do hunting. But we never, Jeb and I, other brother of ours, never really got the bug like you did. For that big interest. We went clay pigeon shooting a lot when we were kids. We always liked to do target practice shooting, but never really developed into a hunter.
Yeah. Well, I'll get you out there soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's always fun.
I'd love to see you and Jeb out in a blind together. I don't even know what that looks like.
I don't either. It would be interesting. We'll definitely have to do it at some point, because I definitely would. And I think as you and I have of course always talked about these things, then you gave me some other podcasts and things to listen to of other folks who were kind of talking about similar topics. And that's kind of how you and I started talking about maybe we should do another podcast and talk about some of those things. It's really difficult. It's so important. You can tell people are interested in talking about these philosophical ideas, even though it sounds very nerdy, right? But people are. These types of deep, penetrating questions really get at the heart of our interests. And so I imagine that your listeners as well, when they're, really engaged hobbyists, you start to either get defensive about those things or you start to really take them seriously, right? All of a sudden you look at the world and politics and arguing totally different when it impacts your, something that you're very, very passionate about. So I think that's a good doorway for us to come together and kind of chat.
Yeah. Okay. So, you don't eat any meat? Right?
That's not entirely true. That's a good disclaimer for myself. I have an overwhelmingly strong vegetarian preference. So that's kind of how I refer to it. So when at all possible, I'm going to eat vegetarian. So if anywhere that I'm at that I'm eating, here at the house, we don't stock any meat in the house. So I'm always vegetarian when I'm at home. The only times I would really eat out is if I go out somewhere that doesn't have any good vegetarian options. I'm one of those that will break on occasion and still have a burger or a steak or a bacon sandwich or something like that.
Like when we've been schlucking beers all day and
exactly.
We go and get a Big Mac.
Exactly. The salad isn't gonna cut it for me at 3 a.m. No, not at all.
No.
So I'm unique in that regard as a vegetarian. And I think that's okay. I think that's another thing that a lot of people don't always know about, because often, and I'm preaching to the choir a little bit, but how people have a tendency to like to categorize, right? So you think, oh, all hunters are this way, right? That's all they think about, or that's all they do. And of course, that always shades a lot of differences, right? There's of course a lot of commonalities amongst hunters, but there's also a lot of unique aspects. And I think that same thing kind of happens with vegetarians, or vegans, or anybody really who has a non-meat eating dietary preference. There's this tendency to think that you must, there's only one type of person that does that. And I think as the world kind of grows, we're seeing a lot more types of folks who maybe they don't eat full vegetarian, right? Like my wife, but maybe they'll just eat mostly vegetarian, or even just, it's even becoming kind of common now to have a vegetarian night, right? Like you might have Taco Tuesday or Pizza Fridays. A lot of people might do, no meat Mondays or something like that. Because everybody's kind of recognizing the health benefits of eating at least maybe more fruits and vegetables. We can always all eat kind of more healthy. So I fit into that middle category for sure.
Sure. All right. From your foxhole there, what's the biggest, and not being a hunter, you don't eat a lot of meat. What's the biggest perception issue that hunters have? What are we doing wrong?
And in terms of how you might think about vegetarians or people who are against hunting?
I would say, as you watch everybody and you look over at them looking at hunters and kind of the persona that we're putting off, and then the arguments that we're using. What's your damn hunters, you got to do better.
I hear you, Roger. So what I consistently see happening is hunters sometimes overstepping their bounds with an argument, and setting themselves up for easy counter arguments, right? So we've talked on the previous podcast about how you could theoretically come across somebody who's just totally mean and belligerent, right? And you might rightfully be defensive against somebody like that. The joke might be you're out somewhere and you got a camo hat on and somebody just runs up to you and just starts yelling at you. You murderer, you're a hunter. That's so stupid. To somebody like that, these arguments that hunters use often really, really work well, right? So if somebody's really being radical and inappropriate, I feel like hunters are very good at arguing for their position against those folks. But towards a slightly more nuanced argument, or anybody who's in the middle, like I kind of feel that I am, those same arguments won't work as well. So I think that's probably the biggest issue that I've seen hunters make, or the biggest mistake that I've seen. What's an example of that? Right? It's really common for if I were to say, "Hey, I think hunting or killing an animal is unethical," for the hunter to bring up the fact that, well, a vegetarian also has to involve in some killing in order to get their food, right? Be it maybe putting up certain things that kill deer or rabbits so that they can't get on land, whether it's also maybe hitting a deer and just distributing that product. And so I think that the kind of problem with that argument is the hunter is really sidestepping the main issue that the vegetarian might have had. Now, of course, we're using these dichotomies to put people into groups, and there's subtleties there, but that's a problem that I often see hunters make.
Yeah. So I guess we have we've been talking for a couple of weeks now, and we ran down a couple of questions that we thought that we should talk about. And I think it's just really important that we kind of move into that and start unpacking things. So, all right. So I think the number one thing that we need to address then is, why is killing an animal unjustified?
Yeah, that's really the linchpin of the whole argument, right? And other podcasts and other groups who bring up or decide to talk about the humaneness or the ethicality of hunting, they'll often start there as well. And so there's the basic idea is that if you argue that it's okay to kill an animal, but you don't think it's okay to kill a human, or you don't think that it's okay to kill house pets or something like this, then you would be creating some form of speciesism. You'd be in basically falling victim to a type of logical fallacy where you would be saying certain species have less rights than others. And so that's the basic argument that would say that killing an animal is unjustified, because the idea would be you don't allow yourself to kill these other either animals in the names of like dogs or pets or things like that, or perhaps you would say that it's not okay to kill a human. And so then the answer would be, you're also not justified in killing an animal. And if you think that you are, then you have to explain, why is it that it's okay to kill animals in these contexts, even though in these others it would not be okay? So that really is kind of
sure. And some questions that I would ask myself, now is, okay, why is it okay for me to shoot a duck or to shoot a goose? And I'm okay with that, right? But how come I don't do the same to wild dogs or dogs, right? What's the difference between, between Fido and the duck? And why is, some people would actually not, I don't think, categorize, well, that's not even an important question to ask. I know that answer, but how do we unpack our feelings about that?
That's a great question. And you'll hear me go back to this again and again, that the first step is just intention. A desire to want to even think about this, it goes a long way. So, right. So even just saying, I want to think about this, is really, really important. That's an important first step. Even if all the rest of the philosophy or the logic that we talk here shortly doesn't make sense, right? That's a good first step. But what I would say is this. First, ask yourself, why is it that that you would distinguish on any ethical grounds, right? Why do you? Let's go ahead and talk about killing human beings for a little bit, and we're gonna, of course, whatever you get involved in a philosophy conversation, you talk about big, weighty issues. These can be sensitive to folks, and they can be triggering in some instances, depending on your life experiences, right? That can make arguments sometimes difficult. But most people don't think that all killing is equal, right? In fact, we have laws in the country that distinguish, in fact, between different types of killing, right? For example, if somebody puts together a plan to end somebody's life, right, that would be considered murder, and it would typically be considered, exactly right, premeditated murder. So we make an ethical distinction in our country from somebody who puts together a plan and maybe over a period of time works to kill a human being, as opposed to perhaps causing a death accidentally, right? Maybe you do something at work and you make some mistake at work and somebody dies as a result of that. The average person would say that the ethical status of those two things actually changes, right? Most people would say, oh yeah, actually, in fact, I think the murderer, the person who premeditated murder, was actually a worse person or did something worse than the person who had maybe an accident that was unfortunate at work and led to somebody dying, right? So the first thing is, it seems as though almost all people make that distinction, right? That there are gradations, kind of, or layers of how unethical a murder is, or a death of a human in that regard. So the first thing that I would say is, ask yourself, where do you fall on that continuum, right? And if you think that animals are exempt, right, which is fine, just kind of ask yourself that next question of, why are they exempt? If your answer is, well, because there's no other way, right, that might mean one thing. Then if your answer...
You mean that there's no other way, like we have to kill animals because we need food. We need, you're talking about cows, you're talking about livestock and agriculture,
exactly,
correct?
Exactly. And so you could, if that's your reason, right, and again, I'm recommending that to unpack this for yourself, come to know what you think. It's much more important. I'm not trying to convince all your listeners to think like I do by any means, and I know you don't want that either. But you can ask yourself, right? Why do I think this is different? Right? Are you just? And then the answer to that, the answer will help move you on. You might say, well, because you're required to kill, right? You're required to do this. That's, I think, a dangerous position to take, because you're not really saying that it's ethical to kill an animal. You're simply saying that everybody is required to act unethically. And I often wonder, is that really what a hunter thinks, right? How about you? Maybe it's too early for that, but where do you sit on that person? Do you feel
so when it comes to, okay, for me, there's not a diet that is tenable for the human race that consists solely of fauna for me, flora.
Right, sure.
The human species will always need protein in the form of animal flesh until some sort of crazy scientific thing where we can just magically, produce this stuff without having to do it. Like, and that's not I don't live in that world. I live in a realities-based world, and we need meat. We need red meat. We need white meat. Whatever. And yeah, I do. I believe it as from like a utilitarianism, standpoint. We need animals to sustain human life.
Sure. I think that's really, really good. What you'll see me going back to again and again is, I'm always going to recommend that your listeners, to the extent that they want to get a lot of value out of this podcast, right? Think through each one of these questions that you and I talk about here. Maybe even with a pen and paper in hand, and write down your own, because what I'm most passionate about is each individual person knowing what their position is, because then collectively, when we talk about our own positions, we'll each be coming with the best kind of, you're an athlete. You've been a competitor, all your life. You don't want to compete against people who are not trying hard, right? You want to, it means something when you're competing against somebody who's taking it seriously, right? And I'm kind of the same way with arguments. I think that's the most important thing. And I want people to come with the strongest arguments they can. So you mentioned that your position is both utilitarian, in that this is your argument. By claiming that it's utilitarian, you mean that it will kind of create the most amount of good for the most amount of people, right? So the largest net value of goodness will come about from continuing to have at least a partially meat-based diet, right? And that this is some sort of a matter of like necessity for you, right? That kind of biological necessity requires that we have some kind of meat-based diet, right? So for you, here's the questions that I would have. So if, and again, this is a hypothetical, right? So we're not there yet at all, but if there was a way for us to fully subsist off of, let's just say, a pill, right? Some magical pill. We create this pill, and we can just swallow this pill, and that pill gives us all of the all of the nutrients that we need. And again, this is a big if statement, so we can talk about the feasibility of this, or how much money it would cost, and all that are great arguments. But it's good for understanding your own position to go through this hypothetical. Are you saying that if we got a pill that gave you the same nutrition as the meat, would you no longer eat meat, or would you be an advocate of no longer eating it? Or would there still be more reasons? Or for that, or did we just kind of find the limit for you? And I bet it's different for your different leaders, right?
Yeah.
You might find yourself saying, well, actually, yeah,
Right.
that was if somehow that hypothetical, Now you could say, I'm with you, Zach, but where I'm disagreeing is, of course, the cost and the feasibility of that thing. So I think that's a good question to ask yourself. Where do you sit on that? Would you still want to be a hunter, or would that do it for you? And you'd say, nope, I guess that's it.
Well, and I think this addresses another component of hunting is I'm not one of those guys that says, oh, I hunt strictly for meat. Like, that's what I'm doing. I'm going out there to get food, like good food and all that stuff. Well, that's not true of me at all. I enjoy so much more about the process and the tradition and the lifestyle of being a hunter and gaining my own meat. Just taking a pill for me to get all of my resources that I needed for the day would not be spiritually fulfilling.
Now that's
You know?
important, and that's a great counter argument, in fact, to the question that I just asked you, right? And this is something that's really important because initially you had said that you were most interested in kind of diet. So I asked about the pill, but even if we get the dietary pill side down, we wouldn't necessarily have all that other feeling and reality and kind of engagement with nature and things like that, that we know has an impact on our psychology, right? On our health, right? You can't always just create a pill for that, I guess, is the short story, right? Because even if you create a pill for something that's chemically identical, right, there are still going to be other things that are not identical about it. Make sense?
Yeah.
And this is what I see is the problem from folks who maybe you could say are arguing from my position, or the more vegetarian or meat, no kill or meatless arguments. I think they too often assume that that science might eventually be able to just duplicate all that, right? And I think that it's really, really famous right now, and I'm excited for it too, of course. But there's the Impossible Burger. Have you had that anywhere? Burger King, I think. I don't know if we can mention other fast food chains like that and things, but a lot of these fast food chains are starting to add vegetarian burgers, and they're using this Impossible Burger. Have you had that meat yet?
No.
It tastes really. It tastes really, really good. As far as I'm concerned, of course, there will be debates about it. There's a huge marketing campaign going on right now for that. And from my perspective, right, even if we mimic that chemically, hunters in particular are right to say, yes, but there are still other aspects of hunting and participating in that could be meaningful, right?
Yeah, and just so we don't get anybody confused, we're not saying so. A lot of hunters, and when we talk about the meat and the the food side of this thing, every hunter, like most hunters that are pretty well developed in their ethics and their moral reasons for doing such, know that there's a difference between participating in the meat market and then participating in, drawing wild game from the earth. But you're saying is like, here's so my kind of issue with this is, we participate with eating beef from very large, farms and things of that nature. And there's a difference between doing that and then eating a deer that we shot. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And eating the deer that we shot, we know that animal. We know how it died. We watched on our trail cam for 2-3 months, that sort of thing. And I feel like the biggest push that at least me and my friends kind of believe in is knowing your food.
Sure.
Knowing where it came from, being in touch with it is like the real important thing that drives you into kind of making these more
Conscientious?
better for
Yeah.
everyone. Yeah, conscientious decisions about your consumption. And I feel like, this whole hypothetical thing about hey, if we could just get it all from this little pill, would actually really takes us much further away.
Yeah, sure, it does. It absolutely would. It would be putting almost an infinitely more, in between you and your food source. You're totally right about that. And so that's why I think that question is just a good one. And I don't necessarily endorse that, right? But it's a good one for really teasing apart, right? Because our argument maybe started, maybe the argument that we first started out with for listeners who wanted to go back, right? We started asking the question about, why is it ethical to hunt, right? Why is it ethical to kill an animal? Ben's basic comment was, well, it's kind of utilitarian, right? And it's also, we need it in our diet, right? Well, that makes it seem like we're talking about chemistry and biology, which someone could argue and say, well, we might be able to mimic that, as I kind of hypothetically did, right? And then the argument shifted towards, well, but wait a minute, there's actually much deeper reasons for me being a hunter than just, right, that I might need it in my diet. For example, participating in just being more conscientious of nature and things in general, right? One thing that I think of vegetarians and vegans and those who support that lifestyle can really come together and do some good on with hunters relates exactly to this, Ben, because I can tell you that it was my first exposure to folks who talked like you did in terms of conscientious eating, right? Knowing your food, sustainably getting as much as possible. And keeping in mind that we both might do both, right? All hunters or most hunters probably also still participate in what you're calling the meat market every now and then, right? Still might go to Burger King.
That at 3 a.m. after all those beers that we had, of course,
right.
We're still.
So it's still going to be a middle ground there. But what I think is something that is really going to be valuable in the coming years here is to come together, because it's only the hunters and the vegetarians who are really strongly kind of arguing, that are really going, hey, we got to watch this industrial farming. 20 years ago, let's say, when I was a kid, or when my wife first became a vegetarian, 30 years ago, it was different. You didn't really hear people talking like that, right? And that's part of what keeps me in the middle, because I've always thought, well, I don't think everybody needs to necessarily. I hear the arguments that vegetarians are making when I was a meat eater, right? When I was before I kind of converted, right? And they made sense to me, right? But I think that you don't need to take it out completely. Moderation is probably a big part of it. And I think the modern hunting community is really coming together on that. And I think that's a very good thing, right? For me, that is, when you think about your food, no matter what, you'll do it better over time, in my opinion, right? Whether that means more safe and humane killing, I'm okay with that. Whether it means eating less, right? Maybe you eat some more vegetables in that. I'll leave it remain nameless, but I had a couple of arguments with another person in your and I's family, right? And we were kind of arguing because there's this question of, is it the case that that most medical communities recommend that the average American, let's just say, eats less meat, right? I'm curious as to your thought on that. Do you think right now, and this is just kind of a fact-based scientific question, right now, do you think most doctors or most people in the medical community, do they recommend that the average American eat more or less, let's even call it red meat, than they actually do? What do you think?
Yeah. So I feel like there's a lot of things in literature and people saying that, oh, that's the reason why we have all these heart attacks and all this stuff. Everybody's eating red meat and all this other stuff. When it's like, what meat are you eating?
Sure. Eat McDonald's.
What are you eating? Yeah. Because if I say, oh yeah, I eat this burger, like, okay, yeah, you're eating a freaking fast food burger, or you're eating, meat from the store that's cut with, whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? And there's like that whole thing about not eating red meat. Eating less red meat is better for you. And I don't know, I don't really subscribe to that. But if you're eating healthier meat, yeah, you're probably
There's I don't know where I fall in. I don't think I'm ready to say that I believe by definition less red meat makes you healthier. You know what I mean? It does seem like a majority of science articles are saying that we should eat that quote the average American, I guess I would say, or whatever, should likely eat less. But that also these studies are also looking at who's the average American, right? Are you the average American? Am I the?
Yeah, well, the average American should eat less as well, less of everything.
Sure. But I like the distinction here, right? Between because we've got to still be able to come together on common facts. So if there's a scientific fact that's out there, we've got to be able to still say, well, this is what folks are saying. But there could be problems with it, right? There could be kind of issues with it. I was definitely that type. I lost a bunch of weight when I switched to being a vegetarian, and so a lot of folks were like, "Oh, well, so that must be the vegetarian diet that's making you lose weight, right?" And surely it helped. Definitely it did. But you know me, the meat that I was eating was largely from McDonald's, right? So of course, if you switch from McDonald's to being a vegetarian, there's a good chance you're going to lose weight, even if all you do is eat cheese bread, right? So it shows that these arguments are complex. I think you should take them seriously, but they are complex, for sure. So I think, from my perspective, I think hunters, to get us or keep us on track, I should say, I think hunters should be careful about using the argument, well, you kill animals too, when they're arguing for why they think it's okay to hunt. Because as you and I just saw, when you and I jumped into it, right, and we're talking back and forth, we eventually actually got away from the direct killing argument, and we're talking more about the ways that we find this meaningful in our lives, right? The benefits that it causes, that it does for us. And we engaged in this much thicker kind of robust conversation. And I think that's where hunters ought to actually focus is, if somebody tells you they don't like that you're killing animals, rather than kind of either shoving back in their face or letting them know, well, you kill them too, talk about the things that you really love about hunting. Because it seems like you were mentioning, right? Not participating in the meat market seems to be a good thing. Well, why? Why is that a good thing? Why is it good? Why is it better to know your animal than to just buy from the meat market? What's your answer? Why is that better for you?
So there's already this natural resource, and I don't want every single person in America tomorrow to become a hunter.
Sure.
We can't sustain that. We can't sustain it.
If everyone became a vegetarian either, we couldn't sustain that either.
Yeah. Exactly. There's a reason we exist on the ends of the bell curve. The thing is, though, is that if we have, obviously, the reason that I want more hunters is because I want more people to be concerned about the natural resources that we have. And obviously, being able to eat, good meat like venison and duck and geese, that's places value in habitat and in more value in the species as well. And the health. If you have 100 people in a room and only 2 of them or 1 of them cares about ducks, when we make decisions that affect vast swaths of issues, there's only one person in there that's like, hey, if we do this, that hurts the ducks, or that hurts the habitat that the ducks are in. So many people think that Ducks Unlimited and these other organizations and us hunters, the only reason that we participate in conservation of the land is so that we can have more wild game. While that's true, they don't see that, what else healthy wetland habitat creates? Cleaner water for you, the person in Los Angeles or whatever. Because these wetland systems, they are natural filters. They think that we're all just consumed by, I want more ducks to kill, which is, more or less, yes, do we want that? We just want to make sure that we can continue looking forward to Saturday morning for as long as we're alive and for as long as our kids are alive, that we can go out and participate in a pastime that has all these awesome side benefits and that we truly enjoy.
Sure. So would you say then that, or what do you think of this? I'm going to kind of argue from your side, or what I think is your side, and you tell me if I'm right on the money or not. There are so many great benefits to hunting. So let's put killing the animal, which could be a point of debate for certain folks. Let's put that aside for just a minute. There's tons of good that comes out of hunting in terms of both conservation of natural resources, of both personal and perhaps even spiritual development, right, on the part of the person who's at least doing this in a conscientious way, right, who's taking it serious, listening to podcasts like this, talking with friends and family about their interests and stuff. So there's also that personal and kind of spiritual side. Plus, of course, monetarily, it helps support this process in life, right? So given all that good, the fact then that what we're seeming to point is that maybe perhaps one of the only, or perhaps even if it's not only, the worst part of it, if that is just the killing, and that is also required as part of the biological process, where is the harm? Is that kind of accurate? If you're saying, hey, if you did all of the hunting, but you took out the kill aspect, right? Presumably all vegetarians and all folks, we're lumping them, everybody else, right? Let's just lump them all in together in that, right? Everybody who disagrees with that would theoretically be okay, right? Because they don't care about having your guns, maybe for protection or display. They might not care about you stalking the animal and doing all that. So the only thing they're concerned about seems to be the kill, which is a necessary part of it's right. Yeah, exactly. And that's a necessary part of, at the very least, that animal's life, right? Maybe not right at that exact moment, but that animal is definitely going to die, right? And typically by worse means than humans have. And so is that to you part of the justification as well? That, hey, this is a natural process at the end of it all, right?
Yeah, two things, actually three things on this. So the first thing is that, okay, I'm being elitist.
Gotcha.
When I say, I would be being really elitist if I were to say, hey, yeah, I'm the best thing in the world since sliced bread because I go out, I care about, ducks habitat. I care about geese. You're not doing anything for ducks and geese, Zach, even though you think that you like them. And the problem is that I came to that feeling. I care about ducks and geese. Maybe we care about them the same amount.
Sure,
I don't know.
Sure.
I know that we, yeah. The reason,
but not in regards to conservation. Sorry, not to totally interrupt because I want you to go. But yeah, you have a valid argument that I'm not currently, dedicating any of my monies to this outside cause. So, for example, other than the fact that I might participate in having conversations like this and eating fewer of those animals, I'm not contributing, right, to that. And so that's definitely value that you could point to, that hunters provide, right? There's a clear, unmistakable value there that a lot of us non-hunters are not providing. To me, that's clear.
But why do I care?
Yeah.
Why do I care? Because, and this is callous. And this is the part about being a hunter that's really hard to address. And it's awkward for people. It's like, hey man, like you go out there because you want to have fun with your friends. You want to have fun with your kid, your dad, whatever it is, because you're out there pursuing this game. But you want that duck to fly to your decoys so that you can shoot them in the face and then subsequently eat them. Like, that's really why you care about these ducks, because you want that opportunity.
Oh, sure.
You want that to happen. You want to consume this resource, and to be really like elitist about like, hey, that's actually the reason that you care about all this, like because you want to continue doing that. I think all the benefits of that, the side effect of that is fine. It's great. But you don't have the most pure of intentions when entering that sphere, that sphere of argument. And so I just think it's really like important for hunters to acknowledge the fact that, hey man, yeah, you want to go out and you want to be primal, which is like, as long as you're cool with that, like don't sidestep that at all. Like you want to go out there and you want to draw blood from a resource. Like you want to harvest from that resource, and that's fine. But a lot of the time that you're making arguments, you are very like trying to sidestep around that or trying to downplay that. You're killing an animal. You're killing an animal, right? We like to say harvesting an animal.
Yep.
Like, you don't euphemize it, bro. You're
Yeah, it's true. You're doing that. I totally agree, Ben. I think it's really important for hunters to just actually double down on that. Just get behind that and be okay with that. And recognize that's what you're arguing, right? Because then you could be convinced down the road, right? Let's say these miraculous things do happen, and we come and learn more about whatever we learn, right? You're always still free to change your mind down the road, but I think it's important for hunters to come out and be honest and upfront about that. Yes, we're taking this life. It's true. I don't necessarily think that I could, what other animals you would or would not justify. Most people, the arguments that I hear a lot, this is one thing that I'll give to hunters. A lot of times they might make the argument, well, you wouldn't kill a cat, right? Or a dog. Well, those would have to be still wild, right? Because there's a big difference between a deer and a domesticated animal as well, right? So I think that's an unfair argument that I've heard non-hunters throw at hunters a lot, right? Which is, well, if you'd kill a deer, then you'd kill somebody's pet dog, or why wouldn't you kill your pet dog? And I think you're totally justified in saying, because that animal has been groomed and lived inside of it's been domesticated. It's living this life that's totally different than the natural or primal life of the animal that you're hunting.
I recently heard about a you're not very familiar with elk hunting, even though you live in Colorado.
Isn't that terrible?
So recently, there was an elk. I heard it off of one of the Meat Eater podcasts, and there was an elk that it grew up as a pet pretty much. And they tried to release it to the wild, and it was actually kind of famous, and it was on TV and all this stuff. And where does this elk wind up other than in the middle of an elk hunting camp? God. Like these guys are going out there and they're going to, hike in 10 miles to go try to kill an elk. And there is this elk. What do these hunters do, you think?
I'm betting that they didn't shoot it. Of course, I'm betting that
they all like corralled it and called the DNR to come pick it up. Because they knew that, this is a domestic elk.
This is different.
Nobody wants that. No one wants to go shoot an elk that's licking your boots.
I think, Ben, that this is a good, healthy line of argument and reasoning for hunters to go down. I think you should not try to sidestep that. They should be honest about that type of behavior, right? That, well, you're right. We recognize these differences, guys, right? We recognize these differences between different types of animals. And yes, we are choosing to take part in this primal resource that we've got available to us, and really just lean in. I really think that's an important thing to do. And if you are interested in, just kind of winning an argument, you can use those arguments of, well, you have to kill too. But that's why I think I'm a unique perspective. I am middle of the road. I mentioned that I do kill, right? So that's part of the reason why I'm not, or I don't have at all the justification to be in your face to others about eating meat, because I still do it. But I do think there's an argument to be had for people who really, really go to great lengths to diminish the amount that they use any animal resources like that. I think those arguments get harder and harder. So, for example, if you are talking to somebody who's 100% vegan, right, who absolutely doesn't kill, they don't. Maybe there are these other kind of side ways that animals are killed by the production of it, right? There's a lot of arguments right now. From what I've seen, I'm still kind of convinced that they're, again, good arguments against the meat markets that you talk about in industrial farming, but not good arguments against sustainable hunting, right? I do think sustainable hunting, which is, families hunting locally, right? And diminishing the amount. I've got tons of friends who can kill 1 or 2 deer a year, and heck, that's enough to feed their whole family. So they're not participating in the meat market now for, pretty much that whole
as much.
And sure. And we have preppers out here too, who probably live fully off grid, right? That are 100% sustainable. Those people have to exist. And once again, that guy's argument is a lot different to me, right? If I meet a hunter who is living 1,000,000,000% sustainably, right? Which means his tools and arrows and everything are also made out of the animals, right? And the carcasses, they're using it. Some true woodmen, right? It's just good to recognize that depending on what you do personally, right? How you participate in this, what you do changes the arguments that you can make, right? That argument that might come and sound really, really good from that mountain man that we're talking about, somebody who truly lives 100% sustainably. They do not purchase any food ever.
Yeah, that doesn't apply to me.
Right. And it's good to recognize. So then that other guy might be able to use some arguments that Benny can't. Right? Because you can't get away with that. My wife can say things like, well, I don't ever eat meat, Ben. I think that's bad, right? That you eat meat. I have a harder time saying that because I sometimes do, right? I sometimes still do eat. So I think it's just good, once again, to recognize your own argument, really understand what it is that you're saying, recognize that there are just these differences between people, right? And lean into wherever you're at. Right? If you like hunting, you like your guns, and you like killing that animal, and maybe you're somebody who's still listening to the podcast now, and you're just like, unbelievable. We're 45 minutes in, and they're still debating whether or not it's okay for an animal to be shot. If you're that type, right? If you're that type, then be that guy, right? But be nice as possible, or gal, of course, right? Be that person. Just lean into that. Recognize that about yourself, and just be okay with that. If somebody comes up and says, I think recognize that you're engaging in some speciesism, right? Because you've already admitted that you're right. There are other animals you wouldn't kill. Be okay with that. Don't get defensive about that. Recognize that that's a dynamic part of you as a person, right? And I think that's the best way for you to continue to then grow on your own, but continue to listen and continue to engage as much as possible with other people. Because I do have a bias in that I think it's always better to be broadening yourself, right? I think it's always better to be talking to people who believe differently than you. I think that's vitally important, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, 2 things that I kind of want to push forward through here before we end it. And we're almost at 50 minutes now already. Of course, we had 40 questions we were going to try to get through. I knew this was going to happen. All right. Why should hunting be banned?
Okay, good. So here I'll give you what are some arguments that people could have for wanting to ban hunting. The first and foremost is going to be, they're going to argue that it infringes on animals' rights. Right? Because in some way you're engaging in speciesism. You're infringing on the rights of animals, and to do that is going to be a harm to the animal, right? In general. You could also argue that whatever the benefits of hunting are, theoretically, that's a big point, but theoretically we could get them elsewhere. Right? Now, today they might sound like pie in the sky ideas. And I admit that I have no good alternatives right now to the hunting model, to what you and I have talked about, and what you've kind of talked to me about, is that basically American conservation model that we have. I don't have a good replacement for it, so don't make it don't take it that way at all, right? I do find hunting to be an incredibly efficient means of sustaining a lot of public lands and things like that. But there are arguments that you could say, if hunters are truly just interested in conservation, if that's your primary thing. So somebody says, how do you kill animals? Well, because you don't understand, I'm supporting this earth. I'm helping this land. My taxes are going to help public lands and yada, yada, yada. That's all well and good, but that theoretically we could get that same thing in the absence of hunting. And the thought is, well, that might be difficult, right? A lot of hunters might choose not to do it. And so I don't deny that practically that's why the hunting model is so good. But you could easily argue that we could at some point in the future, it's at least theoretically possible, that we could get all the same funding or all the same conservation benefits without actually having to kill that animal, right? That's kind of the argument that you could say of why hunting, it would still make sense to ban hunting, because all the benefits of it.
So then what's the argument against saying, okay, hey, listen, let's say we figured out a way to fund all this, right? It's still a fact, though, that because of human and habitat and animal confrontations, we have to essentially restore a healthy balance through harvest data for certain species.
Sure. So here's why I think it's so important to keep a middle position, right? Because I'm going to say that most, and I'll speak for people from my position, right? Most are in favor of more common sense style living together with nature, right? So, for example, I think a good first step would be, let's maybe increase the numbers of animals that we could populate by doing things like rerouting. And you'll probably even know a little bit more about this than I do, but there's a lot of places now that are like rerouting roads and things like that to go around high traffic areas where there's animals, right? Or maybe breeding grounds or
they're doing conservation bypasses. So where they build a big land bridge over the top of a.
So first I would say, making sure that we're doing the best that we can in that regard is a first step, right? Because then that would at least take the number of animals or the amount of population control that we need to do. We'd have to get to the minimum amount, right? What's the minimum amount of population control that we could possibly do to support this system? I think that's what we would do first. But secondly, you would say that we could control those populations in ways that are just, quote, even more humane than hunting. Now, I don't deny that hunting, I think, especially good hunting, right, with a good hunter, is more humane than all sorts of other farming types, right? Farming ways of killing an animal and going through a slaughterhouse and things like that. I do believe that. But I think there's probably even more humane ways to kill animals. What are those? And again, I couldn't give you a good option as of today, right? People could say there might be other forms of either chemical castration or reproduction management in that regard, which brings its own ethical right questions as well, up to and including all sorts of other methods that just involve rerouting those animals or rerouting how humans live, right? I think that's the best first step. Right. So I personally wouldn't argue for banning hunting by any means, but why would somebody, or where would those arguments come from? From these arguments that you and I are discussing here, that we could theoretically get other models. I think those rationally start with doing everything we can to allow animals populations to kind of manage their own numbers as much as possible by returning as much to having a lot of public land and those types of things.
Is it important for me as a hunter to even consider or think about why should hunting be banned? What is it important for me to ask that question?
I'm going to say yes. And the reason is, you may have heard this quote from me before, but there's a really famous quote that I like that says, "He who knows only his side of the story knows little of that." Right? And so I think the reason why you should think about this is, my big question would be, do you want hunting to be banned? As a hunter, do you want it to be the case that you can no longer hunt? I think most hunters, if they ask themselves that question, are going to say, heck no, are you kidding me? This is how I've connected with my family for generations. This is how I've connected with where I live for generations. So I think most hunters who ask themselves, should hunting be banned, are going to find that they're pretty passionate that they have an answer to that, and that the answer is no. All right. And I would say excellent. Okay. I like that passion. If you don't want it to be banned and you don't want to have to worry about those things, then there are people who may be advocating, right? I'm saying that I've got a middle position, but there are definitely people who would argue that hunting should be banned, right? Some of the podcasts that you had me listen to include some of that stuff, right? And so what I would say is, then you need the ability to dialogue, to talk about it in order to participate, in order to be a good citizen, right? In order to really be a good steward. If you're really about conserving these populations, then you better be thinking about the populations 200 years from now, right? That you should still want to be managing,
Yeah.
And if you do, then I think it behooves that person, or it's a good idea for that person to spend some time thinking about this so that you can answer correctly when you're confronted with somebody, right? On the one hand, that's the first thing. You and I are both, you're interested in change just like I am, right? We both want to have an impact on the other. And the only way you can do that is by really understanding these issues. I think it's very important because it'll make you compassionate towards people who disagree with you. Because if you really take this serious, you'll see, as you have, some of these questions are hard, right? Sometimes you might just have to find yourself going, you know what? No, it is actually I am just okay with killing that animal. And I recognize that I can't really give you a good explanation as to why over some other. I just think that right now it's the best option, right? It's the most, I'm open to that changing down the road, but put your money where your mouth is, right? Show me that data. Because right now, this does actually appear to be the most humane way I can do this. I am out for treating animals with dignity and respect. And from what I can tell, the hunting model right now is the best way, right? I think hunters should lean into that. Spend time thinking about that so that you can argue well and so that you can help, right? I'm interested in raising the bar for all groups that I talk to, right? So hunters too, raise the bar, get comfortable with these arguments, learn what the other side thinks, because then you won't be hoodwinked, right, by their arguments. That's the first thing. We all know, we've all been, and you've maybe even talked about it in the last podcast. It's easy to learn some logical fallacies and run circles around people, right? So that's a good thing. You don't want to have circles run around you. You don't want to have some person who's just got off listening to a podcast, right? And then they make you now feel less as a hunter. If you understand the other side and what they think, and you spend some time thinking about that, it will always be better for you. Always.
So what's your take on some of the discussion that's been had? I know that I had you listen to like three or four podcasts, right? To kind of get your take on it. What's your take on kind of the discussion that's kind of been had in the last 3 or 4 months on this topic?
I think one of the things that a lot of different resources have problems with is it's always strangers that are having these conversations, right? Where a famous hunter will debate or talk with or invite on some other stranger to them, of course, but that's just famous from the other side. And that's really, really valuable too. And I thoroughly enjoyed everything that you sent me. I was kind of just, drinking it up like crazy. I was just really excited to see that this dialogue was even happening, for one. But then to see the quality of the debate on both sides. There was really great things to be had. But where I saw they suffered is they were still kind of each side seems to be too unwilling to admit the problems of their own side, right? So from the hunting side, what I tend to see is this real hesitance or this tendency to want to just talk over the personhood issue or the speciesism issue. This idea that why is it that we can do this to animals but we can't do it elsewhere? On the hunter side, I might say as my argument or critique, too often they seem to want to just overlook that. And I think it's out of fear, right? Sometimes it's out of fear, out of scare that maybe they're going to be caught, all of a sudden having to admit that they're a murderer or something like that. I don't know if it's fear or what, right? But that's definitely the problem that I've seen there. And the advice that I would say is, hey guys, lean in. It's true. A lot of people in the world right now still have to kill animals. So we're a long way from being able to live in a truly no-kill society, right? We're a long way from that.
Yeah. what do you, so when these, and I'm not saying left and right as political, I'm talking about the bell curve. So when the left talks to the right of the bell curve and they're having these, great discussions, it's just, tell me what you think about this. I actually don't give a damn what the far left thinks of my arguments. Because too often I just want them to see that, hey, I've actually thought about this. And, if they want to respect the way that I went around, establishing who I am about it, that's fine. I'm not, it's not for them. It's everybody in between the left and the right, like the gradient, everybody in the middle that kind of doesn't care. I need them to see that the hunters are the practical, like grounded, reasoned folk that actually spend a lot of time thinking about it. I think too often the people in the middle think that, okay, the animal rights people, they're the ones, they spend a lot of time thinking about their argument, and they come from a place of moral high ground where the hunters, they just want to be out there and pursue something that they've always pursued, and they're kind of the old archaic, and it's not the case, at least from the people that I talk to and the way that I think about it. And so I'm appealing to the middle folk.
I hear you. I think that's so great. And that is something that I've seen happening elsewhere as well. Too often you focus on those extremes, and most people live in the middle. And so you're right? Most people recognize, yes, there are probably some things that are unjustified, but it's complex. And I think that's something that I've learned in my conversations with you is that, and it was a shock to me originally, right, that this type of dialogue was going on. I do think that's an important thing, because too often, even when I thought worse of hunters, and as I did in the past, right, when I before a lot of your and I's conversations, that was the problem that I was making. I was like, well, you're not even thinking about this, right? You're not even processing this. And so it's a huge step forward, huge, to make sure that folks understand that hunters do take this seriously. As I mentioned earlier, I think in the coming years, believe it or not, hunters and those who support a vegetarian lifestyle or a vegan lifestyle and those types of things are probably going to find a lot of common ground on protecting public lands and doing the most that we can to promote more sustainable ways of living, just in general, right? Just all sorts of, whether that's hunting, but also possibly having small gardens and keeping things like that, right? To decrease the need for supermarkets that have all those large amounts of products. All across the globe, it seems folks are recognizing that a more sustainable way of living that perhaps is a little bit more natural and goes back to our roots, right, is valuable. And I think that's where most people lie, and that it's not in these radical extremes of either never eating meat or just being trophy hunters on the other side, I guess, if that's what you say is the far other side, right? Oh, hunters are just going off to far off lands to kill giraffes. Right? You don't need to do that. You can watch a movie to get your entertainment, right? That type of ignorant thought about what a hunter is, right? And it's like, well, that's one small percentage of hunters, right? Who might act that way.
Yeah.
So I think that's good, man, and I hope that's how your listeners take the podcast as well.
Yeah, and then just to kind of like finalize everything and sum everything up here, I want you to help me kind of formulate my call to action here. And my call to action is there's quite a few of my friends and the people that I know that are, hey, screw them, I don't care. I'm gonna hunt. I'm gonna post this thing on my profile picture that says take selfies, or shoot selfies, not animals, or whatever it was that PETA did or whatever. Listen, guys, everybody's watching you, and take the time to take your passion, and instead of just blowing it out there and saying, screw you, I'm a hunter, man. I'm a this is what I do, all that stuff. Like, show them why. Like, they don't know that you woke up at 3:30 in the morning to meet your buddy for coffee. And like, you guys talked about your kids on the way to the blind. And then you sat out there and you shot 2 geese the whole dang day, but you talked about, each other's lives and all this other stuff. They don't know that kind of stuff. They don't know. They just see that you're out there like mowing down animals and giving the bird like Ted Nugent style.
Yeah.
You know?
That's hilarious.
God bless Ted Nugent. Don't get me wrong.
Nobody is Ted Nugent. He's himself, isn't he? He's great. But no, I hear you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh man. First of all, I love that what you just said. I think that could be your soundbite for the whole podcast. I love it. And I'm just really proud of you as well for pushing your audience that direction. Right. My 2-minute soapbox rant on that is, we're living in a time period right now where this is a hotly debated topic, right? And you know me, I lean. We're scouting around or skirting around politics here, but of course I lean fairly left. I don't mind being transparent about on your podcast, but really love deep conversation. So half the audience might have just quit listening, right? The other half is listening attentively more, perhaps, right? But what I think is so important, because we talk about safe spaces, right, and microaggressions, and oh my gosh, now we can't even have first place trophies, right? We got to have participation trophies. You've probably heard all these arguments, right? That are kind of out there. And I would urge folks that from my personal perspective, of course, right? So think about it and come up with your own perspective, right? But from my perspective, it's actually largely still causing more good than it is harm to present your argument in the safest possible way, to not talk about it in extremes, that taking a middle ground, like you're suggesting, hey, maybe you do like the kill shot, but I think you will do yourself a lot of favors by not posting that, because it makes it seem, as you mentioned, like that's all about it, right? And it's like, man, it's so much more than that. That's why athletes will talk about, good athletes. When you and I are making jokes because we're about ready to go watch some football this afternoon, right? And the good athletes, when they win, what do they say? Do they say the other team sucks? The other teams were losers. The other team doesn't know what they're doing and they should all quit their jobs? No, that is not what I'm about ready to watch the winning team say right after the end of the game. They're going to say, I really respect the other side, right? These guys played a good game today, right? Now, some of that is probably just being kind, right? But there's also a deeper aspect to that amongst athletes, right? And recognizing, hey, we're not doing anybody any favors by, slamming that in their faces, right? And I would liken the kill shot or putting those types of photos, like you mentioned, up on Facebook is akin to gloating after the big win, right? It's like, hey, when you gloat after the big win, it makes it seem like that was all it was about. It makes it seem like you could care less about animals, hunting, or guns. All you wanted was your Facebook picture, right? It makes it seem like that's all it's about. But and hopefully your listeners know as well, there's a lot more to hunting than that. So you want to put your best foot forward. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Perfect, man. Well, hey guys, if you guys enjoyed this type of conversation, let us know. And we'll definally, I'm sure this will not be the last time you're on the podcast.
We'll let you listen.
Hopefully I'm going to try to get you out. Well, maybe. Yeah, that's true. Maybe they hate this. I don't know. If anybody hates this, I don't know. It would have nothing to do with, I don't think, the arguments or the things that we're talking about, but maybe our conversation. No, just kidding. But yeah, man, absolutely. So, yeah, I never thought I would say this in my life growing up with you, but I will let you go so that you can go watch football.
Gotta go watch it. It's coming up. Kickoff is here in like 4 minutes, man.
All right, brother. Well, hey, I love you. And
love you too, bro. So proud of you. Thanks for inviting me on again. It was a real honor. I really, really hope your viewers get something out of it. I really do.
Yes, sir. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Fowl Front Waterfowl Podcast. Please come join us on our Facebook group, the Fowl Front Waterfowl Podcast group, where you can connect with a good group of hunters, because we're all in this together. We need to act like it so that hopefully our great grandkids will be hunting ducks over our favorite public lands. We also ask that you go ahead and give us a written review on iTunes and give us 5 stars if you think we deserve it. And we really do want to hear back from you so that we can give you the best possible content. And if you get in on that Facebook group, you can get in there and you can ask questions and you can tell us what you want to hear next, or you can tell us what you don't like, and we'll be sure to tailor things to our listeners. So, all right, stay safe out there, and we will see you next week.